Hello, welcome to Urban Ink Spot. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Janine, and today I want to do a hashtag end of year pen tag. And I learned about this tag through Rebecca Logan's channel, and the original person who created the pen tag is Katie's Fountain Pen Awakening. And I was watching these two videos, and I thought, you know, this is really something interesting that I want to respond to. So what I've done here is I have listed out the 11 questions, and I've prepared, pulled forward some things that I want to talk about with you today and kind of share some responses to these questions. So the first one is, or actually before we get started, I will just say that I wrote the questions down in my 2025 ink journal, and this is where I do my currently inked and also where I do some writing samples. And I didn't have a ton of foresight to put this on the same page so that I could, write back and forth. So you will see some flipping here back and forth, and I'll be bringing in some other journals as we talk through. So excuse the lack of foresight here. Okay, so first of all, the pen used the most this year. Now, what I do every time I ink a pen is I will make a note in my ink journal. And this is, this is the Cafe Note A6. And it is made in Japan. It is Tomoe River paper. And I have this broken out into, I can do a video about this if you guys would like to see it. But this notebook is broken into 3 parts. The first part is just a little bit of playing with my inks. The second part is documenting all the pen and ink pairings that are currently inked. And at the very end is where I put the pen name and what I've inked it with, and also some notes on what I might want to ink it with next. Anyway, so I went through my 2024 journals entries and figured out that I had inked, let's see which one it was. I had inked a few different pens, 5 different pens, 6 times each. And those pens were my Sailor Pro Gear Slim, my TWSBI Vac Mini, my Shown Design Faceted Brass Pocket 6, my Pilot Custom 74, and my Elite 95S. But I've decided to give it to the TWSBI Vac Mini because the Vac Mini has a much larger ink reservoir. And so if I actually filled this pen up 6 times, that means I went through a ton of ink, materially more ink than I've been through on any of my other pens. So my TWSBI Vac Mini is the pen that I have used the most this year. The second question is the pen not used at all or rarely used. And the pen that meets that criteria is my Faber-Castell Loom. I bought this pen from Jet Pens based on a recommendation, and I really like the nib. It is a really nice nib writing experience, but there are 2 things about this pen that make it hard for me to use. The first one is this grip section. Now you'll see that there are some, I don't know what we call these, rivets. No, I'm not sure really what these are called, but on the section, you've got some texture here that is probably supposed to keep your fingers from slipping too far forward on the grip section, but that didn't really work so great for me for extended writing sessions. And so I did a little bit of internet research, and I found that some people were adding washi tape to it, and that definitely helped, but it just looked really, I don't know, it started to look kind of dingy and a little bit hack job. So, you know, that's the first thing. The second thing is that this capping is, I mean, capping it is pretty satisfying, but this is kind of hard to open. And sometimes, you know, if my hands are tired and I'm not doing so great on grippy stuff, this can be challenging to get to. And, you know, I just didn't love that. So it's a great pen. I would certainly, you know, I got it as one of my early pen purchases. It's newer. It was one of the first ones in my collection, but I wouldn't buy this again. And that's why it gets the Faber-Castell Lume, gets the title for the pen, not used at all in 2024 or rarely used. This one was actually not inked at all in 2024. My most recent pen purchase goes to my Esterbrook Estie in Botanical Garden. And I bought this pen at Stationery Fest in August of 2024. And I had a nib grind appointment with Gina Salarino from Custom Nib Studio. And, you know, I knew I was going to buy this pen. I've had my eye on this pen for a very long time. But I was having trouble finding it in the gold trim colorway. And so when I was at Stationery Fest, I saw that they had this pen. I saw that they had a broad nib. And when I was talking to Gina in preparation for my appointment, I was like, okay, if I get a broad nib, do we have more interesting things that we can do with it? Like, what can we do on the nib grind? And so this is my most recent, and yeah, I've been really excited to have this in my collection. Like I said, it landed in my collection in August of 2024. Pen that isn't your vibe, but you've grown to love. So this one was a little bit challenging for me. I have only been in the fountain pen community since late 2020. And so it hasn't been super long. And my collection, you know, I've kind of been intentional on the pens that I've been bringing in, trying to sample a little bit before I actually, you know, expand my collection too much. So I would say any of the pens that I bought earlier in my fountain pen journey may have been purchased really to just test out different nib sizes, different nib types. Do I like certain grip sections? And really just experimenting and exploring to figure out what ultimately would be my vibe. So there are a few pens that would fit the criteria of pen that isn't your vibe, but you've grown to love. But for this one, I have given the award to the Lamy All-Star. And I don't remember the name, the colorway of this pen. This is one of the very first pens that I bought. Actually, you would probably get a kick out of it. I went through and started documenting all the pros and cons of the different pens that I wanted to buy for some of my first pens. And the Lamy series in particular won because of the interchangeability of the nibs. And so I bought this one in a fine nib. I also have a broad nib for this. But I actually found a pen and ink pairing that has really made me fall in love with this pen. And it is Aldous Huxley by Organic Studio. And that thing is a real sheener. And I have put it in a few different pens, but this pen and ink pairing really delivered a nice sheen and also a fine, crisp line. And every time I have that writing experience, I really enjoy it. And I've really grown to love this pen because of how it performs with that with that ink. Even though I don't really like this grip section for long periods of time, I am willing to overlook that because of the journal entries and the writing experience of this particular pen and ink pairing. And it's caused me to really appreciate and value this pen more. So that's the pen that isn't your vibe, but you've grown to love. The favorite ink and pen pairing over this year. Now, this was challenging for me because it looks like I'm saying that a lot, right? I really do love my pen and ink pairings, but you'll notice on some of these entries, if I really like the pairing, I'll put a little heart by the entry so I can eventually come back to it. And so I was looking through my 2024 entries to figure out where I had hearts denoted. But you know what? To make it even more complicated, I also put hearts on the ink page. And then I noticed that I was also putting hearts on some of these pages. So yeah, this one was hard to figure out exactly which one, but I finally landed on the Pilot Elite 95S with Sailor Manyo Shirakashi. And I inked this, I think, for the first time in May of 2024. Yeah, there's another May entry in 2024. Yep, I put this in there. I put it in there a lot. So it looks like I put it in March, in April, in May, in another time in May, another time in May, in June. Nope, that's Pilot Custom 74. So you can see that I just wanted to keep inking that up. So here is, let's see, I think it's on page 34. Here is the Sailor Manyo Shirakashi ink. And I really like this ink because, just true to the Manyo line, as the ink dries, it takes on a little bit of different color properties. And this pen has somewhat of a bouncy nib. I actually had this nib ground by Gina Salarino to a, what did I have this ground to? I had, let me see if I can find this one quickly. I had this ground to a cursive italic by Gina Salarino. And I've loved this pairing, and I just inked it over and over and over, and this pairing wins for the favorite ink and pen pairing this year. Now, for my favorite ink of this year, it was not Sailor Manyo Shirakashi. It was an ink that I bought just a little bit before I bought that ink, and my favorite ink is Sailor Zare Gokuro. Now, I went to Goods for the Study in downtown Manhattan, and I found a person who was working behind the desk with around the fountain pen and ink section. And I was flipping through they had like a little ink journal where somebody had written with all of the different inks. And I was flipping through that, and somebody walked over. Actually, the person who was originally helping me was taking a break, and somebody else walked over and started talking to me about these inks. And we looked at a few different ones, and I brought Zare Gokudo home, and I did not unink it for a very long time, because this ink, similar to other lines in the Sailor ink series, the way they shade or their properties are just so neat. And I really love watching this ink. Pretty much out of any juicy nib, the juicier the better. And as it dries, it turns into a bluish, brownish, grayish kind of ink. And I don't think that I have this one swatched out yet. I think that I bought it and meant to swatch it out, but I think the page is still blank. Yeah, it's still blank. I will be adding an ink swatch to this so that I can see it on the Tomoe River paper. But yeah, this ink, I will showcase it on my channel at some point soon. If you have not seen it or sampled it, I would, and if you like ink properties that change as they dry and really have some visual interest, you might really like this ink. And so this one wins the award for my favorite ink of 24. So much so that I went back and bought some more ink from that same person who was behind the desk, because I really liked her taste in inks, and she has continued to suggest some really great inks that I have. I picked up more ink than I planned to this year because of how talented she was. Okay. Question number 7. Pen with a great theme and or a limited edition. That award, the category would have to go to my Black Robin pen in recycled skateboards. Oh my goodness. So I saw this on a YouTube channel of somebody. They were doing currently inked, and they actually inked up a ton of pens, which was so exciting to me. But once I saw this pen on her channel, I could not take my eyes off this. So I got online, when she introduced what pen it actually was, I got online to Black Robin Pens on Instagram and sent a note out to the maker. I believe her name is Meg. I sent a note out to the maker and said, you know what, I really want this pen. And what she told me was she took a limited set of orders every year, and she was all full up, but that she would likely have some extra pens depending on supplies. She might have some extra pens available, first come, first serve, to sell with a stock nib. And then, the finials, the different embellishments on the pen, there would be a number of them, but I wouldn't be able to custom order them. So, I did the only logical thing. I wrote it on every single calendar that I had. I set alarms, multiple alarms. I blocked my calendar. And the very second that the stock pens went on sale, I sent an email and a direct message and was able to snag one of these pens. And I love this. There are so many different pens, inks that there are so many different inks that I can put in this pen and really enjoy the writing experience. But one pen and ink pairing that I've really come to love is something that really shows off the brown. But anyway, this pen, absolutely love it. And this is the pen with a great theme or limited edition. I would say that this wins hands down over and over. I absolutely love this pen. However, the next question is pen you are in love with. And I want to say this pen, I definitely do love this, but in terms of the pen that I am in love with the most, it would be my Pilot Custom 74. Now, this pen has a meaningful story for me. I was, not too long ago, I was in a job that I didn't really love. It was a bit challenging for me for a few different reasons. I'll say that differently. I loved the job, but there were some circumstances around the job that were really challenging. And so I decided to look for a new job within my company, and I got the job. And I got and signed the offer letter on my birthday. And so I went out and I bought myself this pen as a combo birthday / new job / congratulations to me kind of pen. I have since had this nib ground by Gina Salarino from Custom Nib Studio, and this was ground into a journaler nib. This is the very first pen I ever had custom ground, and I really adore this pen. It's really special to me. It's really, really meaningful because of the situation with my job, and just for a number of reasons. So this one, I expect that I will be in love with this pen for a lot of reasons, for who knows, the foreseeable future. But this one wins the question number 8 of pen that you are in love with. Number 9, my favorite pen accessory that I've bought or made. This one's silly, actually, but this is a little tin that I got out of, there was a larger tin that it was part of, and this part comes out. But I put on this a silly little sticker that says, I ink, therefore I am. And I use this as a little bit of a catch-all. If I'm swatching inks and I want to make sure that I am spill-proofing my desk area, then I sit it inside of this. I don't have the Inkapets. I definitely need to get an Inkapet, but I don't have one. But it also, whenever there are things happening, if I'm cleaning stuff, I will put different things inside of this. And it's turned out to be, it's nothing really. It's a little device, a little thing that I have repurposed, but it's cute and I love it. And it's one of the favorite things that I have out of all of the little accoutrement and all the other things that go with my pen and ink collection. I grab this thing a lot. So this one wins the Fave pen accessory bought or made, or let's say repurposed. On number 10, the pen I wish existed, or let's put this little guy in here. The pen that I wish existed, or a grail pen. Okay, so my fountain pen collection is not very large. And as I've said, I've tried to be pretty intentional about the pens that I'm bringing into my collection. Because what I want to do is, I recognize that I have one writing hand and I have a lot of different pens, and I don't want to find myself with a collection that balloons more than I can enjoy it. And I don't know what that balance is or what that tipping point is to where I find myself with more pens than I can enjoy regularly and have in a regular rotation. So in terms of a grail pen, I would say I have a few different pens on my short list, and I am going to the Philly Pen Show on Friday and Saturday. I believe it's January 17th and 18th. This will be my second time going to that Philly Pen Show. And at the pen show, I have a very short list of pens that I want to look at. One is the Pilot Custom 823. One is a Pilot Vanishing Point in the stripes body, which I just find that pen to be oh so cool. But I also have my eye on a Pelikan M800, and I've handled it. I love it. I really, really like the way that feels. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how to answer the Grail pen question because I have a few, and I will be coming away with a pen from the pen show, maybe two, but I don't know yet. And maybe I'll be better able to answer this question of, you know, what a Grail pen might be to add into my collection. Now, fountain pen journey reflections and what's next. So like I said, I started my fountain pen journey in late 2020. And I use my pens for planning, for journaling, random note-taking, letter writing, and I find so much joy in the tactile feel of the paper, putting pen to paper and just getting my thoughts out. Sometimes it's a more theme-based journaling. Sometimes it's in my 5-year journal, in my long form journal, in my TN. Like, I have a lot of different places where I can put pen to paper. And I've been contemplating a lot lately about how I feel about my pens and inks and how they change over time, how I feel about them. Let me restate that. I've been contemplating a lot about how I feel about my pen and inks and how that feeling changes over time, depending on how I'm using them, what I'm writing with them, how often or how little I'm grabbing for them. And then also when I look back at some of the writing that I've done with some of these pens and inks and thinking about, you know, what that pen and ink pairing meant to me at that time. And it's really been therapeutic to use my pen and ink. So organizationally, yes, awesome. Planning, staying organized, writing letters, communicating, yes, awesome. But I find personally for me, being able to just journal and use my pens in that way has just been the most reflective for me. So I don't expect that I'm going to grow my collection much in terms of adding more pens or more inks. I mean, I will certainly bring in more, but it's not really about growing the collection in quantity. It's more about, for me, it's more about changing and growing into my collection, where I am taking some pens that have been important to me, that I have invested in and brought into my collection, and modifying them and customizing them so that my experience with my pens is more unique to me. And that's really where I want to take my pen and ink collection. And I know we're all so different, and that's the beauty of this community, is that our priorities are different across individuals, but they're also different across different times in our lives. And so, you know, I want to be mindful about where I spend my money, and just make sure that I find that right balance between growing in quantity and also improving and evolving in terms of customizing and making them unique to me. Another reflection that I have about my fountain pen and ink collection is that when I started purchasing ink, I didn't really know a lot about different ink lines and properties, and I would say that I went on a very more of a traditional path and followed some recommendations from some others who were a lot more familiar with what was out there. And I will say that I've got some very beautiful inks in my collection that I love that kind of fill out that, do I have a really nice black ink, a nice blue ink? I have a few of each of those. Or do I have some inks that I like that are really good for everyday purpose? But what I've really found lately, and a lot of it I would attribute to the person that I met when she was at the behind the desk at Goods for the Study, is, you know, I'm really enjoying the experience, similar to, you know, custom grinds on my pens. I'm really enjoying the experience of finding some inks that are unusual and have different properties than other ones in my collection, and trying to make sure that I give them all some time in the sun, if you will, give them all an opportunity to be used across my different journals, and just really immerse myself in the experience of enjoying and using and appreciating what I have. And, you know, part of appreciating what I have is certainly just taking a moment to pause and reflect and think through what I have, how I'm going along with it and getting through my collection, and am I taking enough time to use them all as much as I would like to use them. So thanks a lot again, Rebecca, for first featuring this pen tag on your channel, and also to Katie of Katie's Fountain Pen Awakening for coming up with these questions. It was really interesting to go through, to measure, to contemplate and reflect, and be able to share some of my thoughts and feedback with you. So I would love to see other people who are doing this same tag, and I would love it if you would make a similar video using this tag so that we can all learn a little bit more about each other and continue to develop and grow as a community. So thank you everybody again for stopping by. This was a lot of fun to do, and I hope to see more people responding to these questions and adding similar content to your channels. All right, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.